To Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and as always, thanks so much for being here. I hope you enjoy the show. Well, I have a return guest today, which I'm thrilled to bring to you. Her name is Lauren Yarger. She's a producer and playwright for Gracewell Productions and the co-founder of the Connecticut chapter of the League of Professional Theater Women. And Lauren, thanks so much for being here.
No, thanks for having me, Deborah.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for coming back.
Sure.
You know what, you and I were talking before we started the show. This is your third time coming back, but we talked a lot about the chapter, but I'd like to be able to talk about you first. Why don't you give us your background and let the viewer get to know you again? Tell us about yourself.
Well, most recently, I obviously, as you said, I'm a producer and playwright with Gracewell Productions. But right before the pandemic, for quite a long time, I was mostly a critic. And I reviewed shows in New York and in Connecticut. And I was a member of the Drama Desk and the Outer Critics Circle and so forth. Before that, I was a producer. So I'm kind of returning to my original days in theater, writing and producing again. But it's been a lot of fun. And I think I decided to move out of the reviewing realm and get back into producing, because instead of commenting on what other people are doing, this way I get to decide what people are going to do and what gets produced on stage. So it's been very fun. We were talking just right before the show about how the pandemic kind of put a stop on everything, but now we seem to be on our feet and moving forward. So that's exciting.
And I think the viewer would like to know, what does a producer do? I know that you're a producer playwright. What exactly do you do?
Well, the producer, there are different kinds of producers. It depends on the show and what the producer title is. But basically what I'm doing is, as a producer, I'm finding works that I want to see get on stage. And more recently, I've been doing reading series where I've gotten several plays up on stage where we do a reading in front of an audience, which is a great tool for the playwright, because you have written a play and it's all in your head and in your fingers on the computer. But it's the first time when you have a reading. There are different kinds of readings as well, but a reading in front of an audience is really amazing in terms of developing the piece, because you get to hear the words. The actors bring their skill and talent to developing a character that you have only had on paper so far, but now you hear them speak and you get a sense of what's working and what's not working, and maybe a scene is too long, or maybe something needs to be added, it's not clear. It gives you a different perspective on the piece, and you also get to hear audience reaction, so that you can tell, if you've written a funny line and you think it's really funny but nobody laughs, it gives you an indication of whether that's working, or vice versa. If everybody roars with laughter, then you know that line works. So I'm working primarily with that element of things right now, readings, and giving other playwrights opportunities to get their work up on stage and to have that experience of hearing their work, sometimes for the first time. Sometimes it's not the first time. They've had a reading before, but they've made some adjustments to the piece. So now they want to see if that's working. So that's kind of the process I'm in right now.
As the co-founder of the Connecticut chapter of the League of Professional Theater Women, when you're mentioning the stage reading and other things, do they have to be a member to be able to participate in what you're doing?
Well, the chapter is separate from Gracewell. So the reading series that I'm doing are my own production company. The chapter has been supportive of those. And in fact, the last one we did was in February. We had I presented a reading of a play about Nina Simone. And then the chapter used that as a way to celebrate Black History Month and had a luncheon that was in conjunction with it. So they're not done together, but they are supportive. So, as far as the readings go, you don't need to be a member of the chapter, because it has nothing to do with the chapter. It's Gracewell. And for the chapter events, and I have a few I'll bring to your attention today going on. Most of them, you don't need to be a member of the chapter to participate. Sometimes you do, and certainly for benefits like free tickets to things, those are for chapter members. But we have luncheons coming up and many other events where we're just happy to have people from the community. If you're interested in theater maybe you are a theater person and you want to connect with other theater women from around the state, it's a good place, and you don't have to be a member.
Now, people are hearing the Connecticut chapter of the League of Professional Theater Women. Can you explain to us what Connecticut chapter means and the League? What are you folks all about?
Well, the League of Professional Theater Women is an organization. They're based in New York, and they're celebrating this year, I think it's the 40th anniversary. So it's been around for a while, and it's a great networking organization, women in all disciplines of theater. You could be a playwright, you can be a producer, you can be an actor, you can be the person who heads up an education department at a theater. Whatever the discipline is, it's all women in theater. And they come together and they have a million different groups and events and things that you can get involved with in the theater in New York. The Connecticut chapter is just that. It's a chapter of the organization based here in Connecticut. And we are Connecticut based, and we have women who are in Connecticut who are members. So we do have some people who are members of both the New York and the Connecticut chapter because of our proximity to New York. So there are people who work in New York, but they live in Connecticut, so they're involved with both. But the chapter sort of is a separate arm of the league in New York. We do events together. Sometimes we attend each other's events, so we're connected. But the Connecticut chapter, I would say most of the people involved in the Connecticut chapter are probably primarily involved in Connecticut events with us. The people who live nearest New York can get in for the New York events too, but yeah, we have people all over the state. So people are probably not going to drive from northern Connecticut down to New York to go to an event. They'll come to our events here in Connecticut.
Are there other chapters throughout the United States?
There aren't official chapters. We became their first official chapter. There are some groups in some other states that I think are considering becoming chapters. It takes a little bit to get the women together to figure out who's where and to start planning events, and then they would apply for chapter hood in the New York organization. But nobody has officially done it besides Connecticut at this point.
Okay, this is a perfect time. You've got a wonderful group of women that are members of the organization. Why don't we talk a little bit about what is happening with some of them? Highlight whoever you would like to highlight.
I will. I made a list so I could make sure and get as
I know
much
you
in
did.
as possible. I didn't get them all either. One thing I can say is that if your viewers are interested in the chapter, if you're interested in knowing what's going on in Connecticut, with the Connecticut chapter of the League of Professional Theater Women, our events, luncheons, things like that. One of the best ways to find out about that is to receive our newsletter. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out. We're connected with over 265 women in the state who are involved in theater. So we have news in there about what's happening, who's doing what, opportunities that are coming up, events that are coming up, things you can sign up for. You don't have to be a member to get that newsletter. It's just information, and then you can take it from there if it's something you would like to attend. I think you have, Deborah, you have our my contact or some kind of contact. If people use that contact, then and let me know that they want to. Yes, on that website, that WordPress website, you can ask to be put on the list for the newsletter, and then you'll receive it and you'll know what's going on firsthand. We do have, in conjunction with that celebration for the anniversary for the League of Professional Theater Women, we have a huge luncheon on Monday in New York, and the Theater Women Awards are being presented. A number of celebrity people and members of the organization are being honored for their work as women in theater over the years, and for helping theater progress, helping women be able to progress in theater. So that is quite an exciting program coming up on Monday. That's in New York. Some of our Connecticut members will go down and be a part of that. We also have lunches coming up here in Connecticut. We have networking lunches, and we hold them around the state in different areas because, again, I think people are not going to drive 2 hours to get to a lunch. So we go around the state and hope that we draw people from the area. So we have one coming up on March 30th, which is in Hartford. I'm sorry, it's in Farmington, but it's for the Hartford area people. If you're in that area and you'd like to join us, again, just contact me at that website. We have another one in April coming up, which is going to be in Westport. And people from that area will join and get together. And it's a really wonderful time. It's very informal. We just meet at a restaurant. You order off the menu as you wish. But it's a great opportunity to meet other people from the area who are involved in theater. And I can't tell you the number of times we've had people from those lunches who form partnerships and hire somebody for the next play that they're involved with, form longtime friendships. It's a great way to meet people and find out what's going on. So those are some of the very nearest things we have coming up on the calendar.
That's a good idea of what you were talking about, which we mentioned in the last time that you were here. Is it a good opportunity to be a part of an organization where people are hiring each other? Is there work that comes out of your socializing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest benefits to being a member of the chapter, because for me, I've met a lot of women in the state that I just would not have had any opportunity to meet them otherwise. You know, in my capacity when I was reviewing, I would mostly know the press representative, the marketing people, the artistic director, you know, that sort of side of things. But I would never have an opportunity to meet somebody who was, say, the education director or someone in charge of programming of special events for a theater. And I just recently had an opportunity to, I was asked to participate in a presentation of master classes that are being offered at a theater to come as a speaker. And you know, that's the kind of thing I never would have probably known this person otherwise. So, and I know other people directors who've connected with playwrights. We had one of the readings that I did at the Palace. We had a combination of a playwright who feels like she has found her, you know, her heart song director, and they've gone on to do other works together after that reading. So yes, it's very helpful to be able to meet people and know who's out there, and have people in mind for your next project. You know, it may not happen right away, but you may down the road be producing a show or directing a show or something, and you met someone at that lunch who's perfect for that part. So it really works that way.
Okay, Lauren, let's hold that thought. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You are tuned into Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
You matter.
You matter.
And your words matter too.
Your words matter.
What you say in the hallways at school or in the student section at a game matters.
Words can be hurtful.
Words can be offensive.
Words can leave scars.
Words can also inspire,
Support and uplift.
You and your words.
Are they both important?
As a matter of fact, yes.
Community TV, your neighborhood TV.
Publicly funded and a reliable partner for cable companies nationwide. It provides transparent coverage of local and state government, education, and public programming.
A digital town green that can be watched anywhere, anytime, and on any device.
Watch us on today's high-tech distribution methods.
Community TV in Connecticut.
Local,
unfiltered,
reliable, and yours.
And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. And again, as always, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it. Lauren, I think that probably some people might be thinking, oh my gosh, you know, an organization like yours exists in the state. How wonderful. I'd like to get involved. Is there a membership level? I think there was 3 years and 5 years last time. But how does somebody become a member of the organization?
Yeah, to become a member, we have associate memberships and full memberships. And full memberships are people who are working professionally in theater. You know, they usually have some sort of background. They've been doing this. It's not something they just started. And then associate is more a person who's just begun their career and is working, you know, toward becoming that full level. I think there are general, you know, years guidelines or something like that, but usually we can tell just when we meet with a person kind of what level they're at. There's also a friends level if there's someone who isn't really working professionally or consistently, or doesn't feel like they want to apply for full membership in the organization, you can be a friend at that level, and that allows you to attend events, and you would also know, because the Connecticut chapter members are also considered members of the New York organization, so you get their information and emails and events listings and that kind of thing too. So they're pretty much, if you want to be involved with us, we'll find a way.
How long has the New York chapter been in existence?
I think that's 40 years. I should have written that down somewhere. They're celebrating their anniversary. It's at least, it may be more than that, but they've been there for a while. As long as I've been involved in theater and working in theater, they've been a thing. So it's definitely an established organization in New York, and the chapter has been around for about 7. I'm really bad. I should have looked up dates, but it's at least 7 years. This may be our 8th. I'm not quite sure, but that many.
So with New York in its existence, did Connecticut take what New York does and does it in Connecticut, or is it streamlined and everybody does the same thing?
It's very different, actually. New York has a bunch of committees and events and things that they do in New York. And we have kind of done our own thing. We found that Connecticut had its own needs. We have geographic needs, first of all, that New York does not have. It's a very different setup. I mean, we have members from all over a large geographic area, whereas New York is based in New York. And New York has some members that are international. They have an international arm. They have members who are members, say, in some place like, Colorado or something. There are members who joined the league in New York from there. So they're kind of concentrated in New York, and then they have their events and awards and things that they do there. In Connecticut, we found that there was a real need for networking, for being able to get to know other people in our local area, in the state, in the different theaters in the state. So we do these luncheons, we do events, we do panels, we come alongside different organizations. In fact, that's one thing I'll talk about. We have a great, wonderful event and a program coming up in the fall with Ivoryton Playhouse. We met with them. I think this is going to be the 5th year that they're doing the Women Playwrights Festival at Ivoryton. And they met with us when they had the idea to do this, to kind of get some support and ideas and how to make it work. And they established it. And they solicit plays from around the country, and then they select 4 that are given development. And the playwrights are brought in, and they come to Ivoryton, they meet with directors and actors, and they develop the play during the course of the week before. And then on the weekend, they have a festival where the plays are presented. And last year, the chapter came on board as a sponsor of that officially. And this year, we also are sponsoring it, but we're also helping with selecting the scripts. So the plays that come in, we are helping to provide readers for those scripts when they already have cut off the submissions for this next festival, which is in October. They have more than 200 plays that have been submitted already. So between the League in Connecticut and some of our members in New York, and the Dramatists Guild up here in New England, and Honor Roll, which is an organization of women playwrights, we're helping to find readers to be able to make the preliminary selections on who the finalists will be. And then there will be a committee that reads those finalists' plays and decides which 4 are going to be given the opportunity to be developed in the festival. So we're quite excited about being a true partner in this festival, which is helping women get their plays up on stage. So we're very excited.
So you have a robust calendar for 2023, it sounds like.
We do. We have the plays. We have also another event that we're planning in September that will focus on women over 40 on stage. So it'll be a celebration, different elements of celebration, play readings and presentations and all kinds of exciting things, get that newsletter because it'll all be in there. But that's going to be in Westport at the Westport Country Playhouse in September.
Speaking of the newsletter, which you are kind enough to send to me, there's so much that's going on that's in that newsletter. If somebody, do your members submit themselves to you in the newsletter to be put in there so that everybody knows what's going on?
Yes, yeah, that's an option. That's one of the things we offer to our members is that they have that avenue to be able to tell us their news. So sometimes it appears there's an in the news section. So something that's happened, somebody made the news, somebody did something, gets put in there, and then there are opportunities, things coming up. Sometimes some of our members receive free tickets. There's an event coming up. One of our members has started a new production company called Playland Productions. It's mostly historical type based on, very specific to a site sometimes, but the history of that site. And she has made tickets for her next performances coming up in April, I believe it is. To our members, so they have opportunity to request free tickets to those performances, and sometimes some of the theaters, Goodspeed and Westport and Hartford Stage, a lot of them will offer tickets to our members, and so those types of things will be in there too. And then lots of pictures of what our members have been doing, and sometimes they'll submit those, and sometimes we generate those news items as well.
Do you foresee a robust future for the chapter? I mean, is it going well? Do you see it 10 or 20 years down the line?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, we've done nothing but grow by leaps and bounds since we started. And we feel like the two other co-founders with me are Mary Miko and Marie Reynolds. And every time we talk, we're pretty convinced that we have barely touched the surface of women in the state. There are so many theaters in Connecticut. There are at least 12 that I can think of, professional theaters in Connecticut. And then there are other theaters. There are other community theaters. There are professional theaters that are smaller theaters that are maybe not, they don't have an equity contract, but they're professional. There's tons of them. There are a whole lot of community theaters as well. So we have just progressed as quickly as we can in terms of who we know and who our members know and who we can reach out to and getting the word out to people and word of mouth. But we know that there are many more women out there working in theater in Connecticut that we haven't even begun to reach. And once they find out usually that we're here, they're excited and they want to be a part of it. So I can only imagine that it will continue to grow over the years.
The pandemic, which affected your industry greatly, are things starting to change, or have they changed and we're in a brand new chapter?
Things have changed, definitely. I think that we have kind of started putting one foot in front of the other and trying to move forward out of the pandemic. I think some have had more success with that than others. I know that the reading series that I did at the Palace, only because the director, Frank Tavera, and Sherry Marcucci, who's in charge of the special project area that our readings fell under, only because they were willing to take some risks and step out and trust that things were going to work. Did we get that series off its feet at all and moving on stage? We were one of the few things in 2021 in Connecticut that got up on stage and got all of its shows in. Some other people, they just couldn't, they had COVID issues and they had to shut down, or they couldn't even open in the first place. There were all kinds of regulations in place about new air conditioning systems that had to be put in effect. And it's been a long process. So I think people are in different stages depending on how it affected them and what had to be done to come out of it. But I think we're all kind of moving forward as best we can. I think some better than others, some easier than others. I think that I'm seeing some companies around the country that are not going to make it. Some of them didn't come out of the pandemic at all. And some of them are probably not going to be able to make it after the pandemic. It's just too much to overcome. So we'll just take it one day at a time and see how it goes. Hopefully we'll continue to have lots of theaters producing lots of things here in Connecticut.
Are people starting to come out of their homes, if you will, and go to the theater? Are they starting to see audience come back?
They are. I mean, it's certainly better than it was. I think in New York, they're still not seeing the tourist audience that we had. It's definitely not back to the level that it was. I still know people who I talk to who are very avid theater people and who were in the theater, I would say, almost every night of the week, particularly critics before the pandemic who have not returned to the theater. I think people have individual levels of comfort, depending on perhaps whether their health is in good shape, or maybe they have a loved one at home who has a compromised immune system, that kind of thing. So I'm still hearing that from people, that there are reasons why that they have not returned to the theater yet. And definitely tourists coming into New York are at a much lower number than they were before the pandemic. I'm not sure how long it will be if it ever returns to the level that it was. I don't know, but I mean, certainly, again, that one foot in front of the other kind of feeling, I think they're trying to get people in seats as much as possible. Some shows are doing very well and others are not. So we just have to wait and see.
Well, I want to thank you very much for being here. We have run out of time, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Deborah.
And you've been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and as always, thanks so much for being here. Have a super day. I'll see you next time.